Welcome to Narratives Leadership Story Talks, where great leaders go beyond the bottom line to create lasting impact. Join hosts Jerome Deroy and Julienne Ryan as they uncover the stories behind real-world challenges, offering practical insights to help you lead with empathy, authenticity, and purpose. Each episode dives into how leaders use storytelling to build trust, foster connection, and inspire action. Whether you're navigating workplace dynamics, driving change, or building high-performing teams.
They were consistently saying to me, remember when we did that thing? Remember when we went through that big moment? Remember when we figured out how to save the $1 million client? Remember how we, didn't have to lay anybody off even though we lost 40% of our clients? It was all these big moments where we showed up and we got the moment right. They never said, I really enjoyed it how we always got together on Thursday at 9 o'clock for that one-on-one meeting. Like, they didn't say any of that stuff, right? It was nothing was the little stuff. It was all the, remember when we did that big thing? Remember how we showed up for people in that big way?
Welcome back, everybody. Well, we just heard from a really interesting guest we had recently. His name is Chris Dyer, and you just heard him speak about the importance of big moments, and that his former employees, that's what they remembered. They didn't remember the little meetings or the one-on-ones they had, but they remembered the big things that they did all together as a team. That's what stayed with them. So I thought we could maybe have a little chat and a slightly deeper dive, short but deeper,
Yes.
on this topic.
So as I was listening to him, all I kept thinking, this is such a great showing up moment, what he keeps teaching us. And as you probably noticed, Chris has a rather big personality, but he realized that it's not all about just talking, but showing up and really appreciating and acknowledging how many people out there do projects. They go against the clock, they really push themselves, and then it's like, okay, on to the next one. You've got a new assignment, and that big moment lasted a nanosecond, and here's more work. So acknowledging, and it doesn't mean big celebrations. It just means acknowledging it and giving credit to it. And I'm sure you came away with some thoughts too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I love that, the idea that, let's celebrate those moments as opposed to moving right along to the next thing without actually marking the occasion. I'm sure that's also part of why his former employees remembered those moments so much, is that he as a leader showed up, noticed it, and shaped those moments. I think that was my thought about this, was the role that leaders have in actually, let's stop for a moment. That should come from the leader of that project, of that program, of that department, whatever it is that you're working on. There's somebody who's leading it. That person's responsibility is not only to see it through, but it's also making sure that when it's done, when you've achieved that big thing, you take a moment to acknowledge everyone. That's on the leader, and I think the other thing that for me resonated in terms of, the stories we tell as well, and why we tell stories, is that people remember moments more than processes. They don't remember what led to a certain thing. And, it's because I used this technology or that piece of software or whatever. It's more about, I remember that outcome because there were people involved and things happened that had an impact on those people's lives, whether it's me as an employee, part of that team, or whether it's the people I was serving. And I think in terms of storytelling, we're always telling people, focus on the moments, focus on the people in the experience, as opposed to like the very technical jargon, that led you to have a great idea. There were always people around you, I can guarantee it, that were part of you coming up with that idea, or that were part of that experience, whether it's to portray that impact or why you were doing something. So it was interesting for me to see that connection between what he was talking about and why we tell stories and how we tell stories.
And to build on that, practically speaking, as somebody who sat in interviews when people were leaving an organization or in our coaching sessions when we'd say, tell us your backstory. A lot of times people made a decision to cut ties or move into a competitor organization because the leaders, their boss, forgot to acknowledge the work that was
Mm,
done.
mm,
They didn't care if it was hard. They knew we went through a lot. That was all a given of the daily work challenges, but that lack of acknowledgement and paying respect to the process and what went into it is a game changer. So,
yeah.
not a big program suggestion here, but just that moment of acknowledgement and respect.
Yeah, absolutely. You've just made me think of one last thing I wanted to mention in regards
There's always one thing.
to that quote. But
Both of
yeah,
us.
well, yes, that's true. There could be
So
many other things. I'll limit myself to one thing,
okay, fair
but
enough.
for the sake of timing. But no, I think there was something important there because that idea of doing something concrete and let's celebrate that individual for this reason or that team for that reason. Here's what they achieved and here's why that's important for us as an organization. You're absolutely right that if we don't do that, people leave, and you have knowledge of this. A lot of times we get hired by companies to help with employee engagement, and that's what we see as well, is that people leave because they don't feel like they matter, and they feel like another organization is going to value them more. And that's not financial, by the way. It's for equal salaries, they're going to go with that one that does acknowledge them and does a good job of looking at the values and acting on those values. And so what that made me think of was another interview we did with Jim O'Gorman of Included Health, where
It's
he was
true.
talking about the importance of getting your values off the page, off the wall, off the website, and into the organization in a very real way. And he was talking about these programs that they have that celebrate very specific actions people took that reflected the values of the organization, so that you're actually evaluated on how you're living by those values, and there are consequences if you go against those values as well. I think it's a great way to measure another way to measure performance that's not only about how well you do your job, but it's also what are you doing values wise that reflects not only well on the organization but also on you and other people, and makes you feel like, yeah, I belong here because my values align with the values of this organization and this team, and it seems like they're really walking the talk, right? So just thought of that as well as something that, again, leadership needs to own and start to shape in a better way, as opposed to kind of like, okay, that was great, let's move on. Okay, great, somebody lived by the values, beautiful, let's move on, but nobody knows about it. And so I was doing a presentation yesterday, and I was saying that the struggle that organizations have, it's not that they struggle with their values, it's that they struggle with visibility. You're
Mm,
not making those things visible, and how you can make those things visible is through stories. Tell those stories and tell them to a wide audience, not just your organization. Start there, but then you can
mhm.
go outside of your organization, and that's how you'll recruit the kinds of people that are attracted by the values that you promote, and they'll believe you. That creates trust. So that's it.
Absolutely. That's it. That's okay.
That's
We
all, folks. Anything else that from you? That's it from me. But
Yeah. Don't commoditize your relationship and expect people to stay engaged, and
mm,
ask them to do above and beyond when you need them, and then put it back in a box when you wanna get things done. Has to be a
yeah,
blend, and it
yeah,
has to mean something, and it shows up, and
yeah.
people will tell you, maybe not out loud to your face, but they will say it and express it in different ways.
Yeah. Great. I love that. Well, yeah. Notice the moments that matter. And I believe that's the name of the book of Chris Dyer that's going to be out soon.
Oh,
So
yeah,
definitely,
that's right.
yeah,
Thanks.
definitely check out his episode. That's episode 189. So check that out. That's in our library of podcasts at narrative.com/slash podcast, NARATIV. And we look forward to seeing you next time. And of course, as always, don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions you have. Don't hesitate to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, and check out our YouTube channel. Thanks always for listening. And thank you, Julienne, for being my wonderful
And my
co-host.
pleasure. Bye, everyone, and keep showing
Bye.
up.
For more information on the narrative listening and storytelling method and how it can help your business, go to narrative.com.